me go to page 278 and we'll potentially spend a little bit of time talking about concessions. 278? Yes. There is, perhaps if I can just describe my question first, it might be of some assistance. So if you're looking at page 278, you'll notice there are a chart talking about the concessions. 211,000 people receiving the energy concession, 201,000 cost of living, 197,000 water, 129,000 sewerage payments. My point is that there's a reasonable amount of variation there. The government, the Auditor-General also talks about the changes to the costs of these programs, and 37.1 million is identified for cost of living concessions, particularly in 21-22. My understanding is there's just under 40 million budgeted to double the cost of living concessions at the moment, and I just wanted to know if there's any update as to whether, is it still that 201,000 people that we're talking about? Is there any advice to suggest that that is indeed going to increase this year?
So the latest number of households to have their their cost of living concession provided in advance of the end of this year already has hit 204,000. It's fair to say that what this process of doubling concessions has done as well is actually activated a number of people who had not provided information. Many officers have received phone calls and conversations. The team have done a really wonderful job and been able to get a whole range of people back onto the system as well. So, yeah, there are more people benefiting from the doubling of the cost of living concessions. And as you know, the ones for people who are renting, etc., have already been paid. So people can still apply before the end of December. So that number could still go up by more.
Thank you, the Minister, for the question. So as I understand it then from her answer, that's about 3,000 extra already this financial year. Is there any issue with the budget that's made available, or is that an uncapped budget allocation to the department?
Yeah, no, this is something that's very important, particularly in today's climate. It's an uncapped expenditure. It is what it is. We need to find that money, and we'll be paying that money. It's not a capped amount.
Has the department caught up with everybody who's applying for that money? For context, I understand there's a number of people who were waiting for their eligibility to be confirmed by the department for some time, including one of my constituents.
Yeah, no worries. There could be. Although I think my latest advice is that pretty much anyone who's come to our ministerial office, we have our response already back. So since July the 1st, there have been 65,000 phone calls made to inquire about these concessions. There have been 28,000 new applications submitted and 23,000 of those processed. There is still, so that you can't just put anybody just in to answer a call and do the thing. There's been some training. We've put extra people on. We've moved people around in the department and upskilled to this certain service delivery model. Those people are on board, working extra hours, taking the calls. There is still a bit of a wait time on some of the phone calls. We apologise for that, but the right people have got to do the work. However, we are reducing the backlog. So the backlog is most definitely going down, and since it peaked last month or the month before sometime, it's reduced by about 30%. So we're getting there, and we feel very confident that we will really whittle away and get rid of that backlog this year.
I thank the member. I thank the minister for the answer. I think she said that was 28,000 applications. 23,000 have been processed. I stand to be corrected if that was inaccurate. The range of concessions, there being a variation from one concession to another. Clearly, there are a number of people, thousands of people, by this figure, who are identified as being worthy of at least some concessions but not others. Given the cost of living challenges we've described during this session, is the government considering any further extensions of cost of living easing in other concession areas?
Thanks again for that question. It was an election commitment that we would review concessions. So in terms of the concessions folio that you're seeing before you, that will all form part of this review. This review will happen once the department has gotten through this process and everyone has been paid their cost of living concessions. We're very aware about the current pressures. We anticipated the pressures. That's why we doubled the concessions. Then we brought forward the other, about a quarter of the concessions that were due to be paid in March, so bringing those forward. But also at the election we also anticipated, and we made that election commitment to review concessions. Very happy to hear from members if they have got suggestions, or members of the public in regards to that. So we will be undertaking that review.
And when will that review be completed?
Yeah, it's quite, as you understand, it is quite a complex set of relief measures, and times have changed since they were put in place, and they're changing all the time. So we expect the consultation and the review could take up to 12 months, but we will be kicking that off in the new year. But you can take it that we will do it as fast as we can while doing it properly.
Page 275 talks about grants and subsidies, and I'm interested in, particularly given the conditions we're talking about, what new requests the Minister has received in relation to funding requests from Food Bank or other community service organisations to support them in their work at these difficult times.
Well, I can particularly talk to Food Bank, which we already, if my memory serves me correctly, fund by about 250,000 or thereabouts. It's in that vicinity per annum, along with other food relief that we provide. Food Bank, we did have a conversation in regards to their increased clientele, the increased demand, which is over the year in the hundreds of thousands of meals, and also they put to us their pressures that they were under in terms of providing that food delivery with increased costs for them, and we provided them with a one-off $50,000 grant to improve their capacity to be able to deliver with the increased cost of fuel and other items. So we have addressed that in terms of one of our funded food services providers. We do take all requests on merit and do the best we can with what we have.